Let's take a look at the direct select controls, which are particularly useful when we're dealing with palettes and presets, but have a whole lot of other uses as well. So just for a bit of screen real estate, I'm going to collapse my CIA. I'm going to add a tab, and I'm going to pick my direct select module. And when I open that, you'll notice that I get two banks, top and bottom, and I get the ability to select what's going to populate in each of those banks. So for today, I'm going to put my groups up top, and then on my bottom, I'm going to put my color palettes. As you can see, what direct selects are great for is they auto-populate with the target. So all the groups that we've recorded throughout the series have shown up automatically there, as have the color palettes that we put there. And color palettes will show up by default with a little preview of what color's stored in them, so that's convenient. If I want a page up and down in my direct selects, I have some arrows, and that will take me through my different tiles. I also can change which target is mapped there by just hitting the map type again. We'll keep it as color palettes. And if I just need to temporarily expand a target, I can hit my expand. That'll take up the whole tab, and you'll notice that I have sentry buttons down the right-hand side now. If I hit expand again, that'll collapse them back. The direct select displays can also be configured, so I'm going to touch the gear with that direct select frame, and you'll notice that I have at the very top the ability to choose how many banks I want, so I can increase or decrease that depending on my screen real estate. When I'm making modifications to the layouts, I can choose which bank I'm talking to, so if I were to make different control modifications, I could talk to all of my banks or just modify one at a time. Below that, I have some quick layout choices, so I can do 25 buttons in each bank, 50, 100, or 200, and of course that will depend on the density of my screen. And if I want to go custom, I can also say I just want 4 rows or 3 rows, less or more columns, and the like. For our control buttons, we can show or hide specific buttons. So for example, if I show my record button, that's the same as using the record button on my face panel, but it's closer to my touchscreen, so I have to move my hand less. If I don't want any control buttons to show up, I can just uncheck those, and they'll actually hide and give me a little bit more space, but then I don't have the ability to page as easily, things like that, so I'm going to put some of those back. I have the ability to add millennial buttons, which just like we saw in Expand, will give me a shortcut to hundreds and thousands, so I can quickly navigate through large amounts of targets. I'm going to hide that for now. And then I can determine where my control buttons sit. So if I want them on the right-hand side of the screen, that's where they default. Or I can put them on the left-hand side of the screen if that's where I prefer them. We'll keep them on the right for today. Some other tools, if I reduce the number of buttons and say maximize button size, those buttons are just going to stretch to fill the space. As of software version 3.1, you can apply and view direct select icons to associate images with your targets. We apply images in the target list. So for groups, let's go into our group list. I'm going to hit group. You'll notice we have a column that is icon. So for each of these groups, I can pick an icon that maybe represents what's in them so I can find them faster. So for today, I'm going to select group 3. And on my soft keys, I have icon. So I'm going to open that up. And you'll notice I get my image selector. So that gives me access to all of the gobos that are already in my show file, also any images that I've used in my magic sheets, but I can import any image that I want either from a thumb drive or from our library of stock icons. So for today, I'm going to import, and you'll notice we have our stock icons that come installed in the software. Gobos, again, if I were to install a thumb drive, it would show up here and I could bring in images from other sources. But today I want to go into stock icons. And in my stock icons, I'm going to go to directional arrows. And I'd like to use arrow right for this group. I'm going to hit OK. And now that that is imported, I can apply that to my group 3. Certain types of images that you use will allow you to change the color. And these are SVG files that are tagged for use with magic sheets. So similarly to how you would set up an SVG file, we can use files that are set up in the same way to allow you to change the colors here. So if I wanted this arrow to have maybe a green fill and a dark green outline, I can make those selections there. And you'll notice that it's changing it not in the library, but just on that usage of that icon. So I can use the same icon in multiple locations. That's great for now. So I'm going to do another example, group 4, and icon. And I'm going to import arrow left. And I'm going to go ahead and say arrow left for that one. And I'll make that a slightly darker green with a dark, dark green outline. And I can do this for all the groups that I want to see icons. So let's go back to our Direct Select tab and see how these show up. When I go back to my Direct Select tab, you can see that those icons are now displaying in the upper right-hand corner of those tiles. And I have a couple of different options on how my icons display per bank. So to change those, I'm going to go back into my gear config. And near the bottom, you'll see that I have icon position and icon opacity. In icon position, we have the ability to choose any of the corners or sides. So for example, if I wanted center right, I could put it there. I could put it in the bottom center. I have lots of different options. But in here, if I choose center, which is my top option, it's going to enlarge that icon and let it take up the whole tile. This is a good place to look at your icon opacity. We default to 75, but I can say that I want my opacity to be 25, and that will let that recede behind the text. Or if I put it up to 100, it will cover over the text. So for today, I'm going to put it back at 75 where it was. If I don't want to see my icons for a particular bank, I can take my icon position and change it to hidden, and that just hides those icons. But for now, I'm going to put them back to top right, which is my default. Keep in mind that you can make these changes per bank. So for example, if I wanted my upper bank to show icons differently than I wanted my lower bank, I could select which bank I'm using, and now any modifications I make in my settings area will just affect that bank. You can add these icons to most target types that appear in Direct Selects, and they will also populate in Magic Sheets, which we will look at later. And below, like in many other tabs where I can configure settings, I can set the current bank as default. So once I've set that, if I open any other Direct Select tabs, it's going to use all these settings by default. And if I want to reset to the EOS default, I can do that as well, and that puts me back at the same location as if I had just opened a new tab. So once again, I'm going to grab Groups and Color Palettes. This is great for full screen, but if I wanted my CIA open, you can see that those tiles get a little compressed. So one of the things that I can do is do a split screen and put two Direct Select tabs side by side. So the first thing I'm going to do is split this screen. And for this tab, I'm just going to go down to one bank, and I will default 50, which is really nice. And I'm going to go ahead and open up another Direct Select tab on that side of the screen. And I want that to be my color palettes. And that's also going to default to 50. But just like before, I could go into my configuration screen and set those to be any size that I want. So I like this. So I'm going to go ahead and say record snapshot 3. And I can label a snapshot while I'm recording it. So I'm going to go ahead and label it programming, enter. And as soon as I clear my command line, I'll be out of the snapshot editor.